presentation. We encourage you all to ask questions from our presenters today. You can type them into the chat section at the bottom of your screen or raise your hand. Today's event is to educate, bring new ideas and best practices forward. If you have any questions after this webinar, please send them to me. My link is there on the screen. And like I said, we will be following up with our presentation, additional resources, and the presentation. And we will be posting it on both of our websites as well. For those of you who are new to Economic Development Council of Colorado and the Downtown Colorado Inc., we are two nonprofit industry associations that support economic development efforts, commercial districts, and town centers. Since 1976, EDCC has been connecting Colorado communities, our members and our partners, to high-quality educational opportunities and trusted resources, and advocate for sound policies and programs that support a vibrant economy and enhance quality of life for all of Colorado. Now in their 40th year, Downtown Colorado Inc., and I know I'm going to mess this up, and I'm so glad that they did change their name. They were formerly Colorado Community Revitalization Association, and that is a tongue twister at 9 o'clock in the morning if you haven't had enough coffee. They have been committed to building better communities by providing core services to organizations and individuals engaged in downtown and commercial district development. EDCC and DCI teamed up in numerous occasions in efforts to spread awareness on economic development related issues and core information. We have been meeting weekly since December to bring meaningful and actionable content to our constituents during this week dedicated to economic development. We quickly want to highlight some of our upcoming events and programming. EDCC is building a virtual arsenal of information to keep our professionals updated on the latest trends, data, and case studies. You can access all of this information at any time by visiting edcconline.org/past events. We'll drop that link into the chat section here shortly. EDCC is also taking a hybrid approach to programming in 2021. We are coordinating 3 virtual series, 3 Knowledge Network series, and hopefully coming together again in Steamboat for our annual Drive Lead Succeed conference, October 20th through the 22nd. We're holding out hope that we will be able to meet in person, even if we have to wear masks and meet in smaller groups. One last item that I have to mention, June 14th through the 18th, EDCC is hosting our Basic Economic Development course. The BEDC course provides a substantial introduction to the theory and the fundamentals of comprehensive economic development. The formal instruction emphasizes beneficial development that can result from constructive actions of our local leaders. I would like to introduce to you Kat Carell. She is my partner in crime in this. We have been partnering, like I said, for many, many years. Kat, would you like to go ahead and talk a little bit about DCI's events and programming?
Absolutely. Thanks, Kim. And thank you all for being here today and being a part of Economic Development Week. Downtown Colorado Inc., as Kim mentioned, we've been working for over 40 years. And so many of you may know us as the organization that works with your business improvement districts, downtown development authorities, urban renewal authorities, and some of those other quasi-governmental districts and authorities that support downtowns. We are really excited to bring some of our upcoming content. If you haven't been tuning in, every Thursday at 9 a.m. we have an event. This week it's a part of Economic Development Week, but every other Thursday we have something going on. So a week from tomorrow we have Understanding Job Quality, and we'll be looking at what are some of the supports and resources that you can put in place to increase the quality of jobs. One of the things that we're seeing right now as we're talking to our districts is that there's just not enough people to work on our main streets and in our downtown. So a lot of our dynamic district partners are really looking at how they can increase the people who can apply for jobs and really think about what that looks like. So understanding what's job quality, understanding the Climber program and how that can support the businesses in your community. And then we're also going to be announcing our Colorado Challenge program applications are open as of next week as well. On May 27th, we'll be talking about the Economic Recovery Framework, which we presented last year in partnership with Progressive Urban Management Associates. We're going to have updates on that on May 27th. So really thinking about what is that framework that you want to have in place for all of the different stakeholders in your community, and really thinking about some of the discussions that we'll have today when we think about that holistic ecosystem and how you support all of the different pieces of your community as you're looking at economic health. Also on May 27th in the evening as a happy hour, we are going to have our Governor's Awards. That's going to be a really fun event, uplifting, inspirational, where you'll get to really see what communities have done to survive everything that's been going on, and not only survive, but thrive and have a lot of fun. We have been experimenting with ways to make these happy hours even more fun. So get ready for that to be a really dynamic and creative meeting. And then starting in June, we're going to have monthly sessions that look at the topic of taxes and thinking about taxes as your personal, your business, and your community investment in the quality of life. It's called Let's Talk About Tax, Baby, and we will get into all the good tax and the bad tax that may be. Those are just a couple samplings of what we have going, and there's a lot more on our calendar. So please visit our website. And we also do have all of the different sessions that we've had over the course of a year of these weekly talks recorded, and it's on our website under the services tab on commercial district resources. And we also have a special resource page for districts and urban renewal. So check us out if you don't know us, and if you do know us, come hang out with us again. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Kat. And I did drop in the link to DCI's events and programming pages for you all. All right, now without further ado, let's go ahead and get on to today's programming. International Economic Development Week, hashtag EDW2021 was created by the International Economic Development Council, or otherwise known as IEDC, in 2016 in order to increase awareness for local programs and services that create jobs, advanced career development opportunities, and increase quality of life among our communities. Over the span of 5 years, more than 450 campaigns have been created, generating millions of impressions, hundreds of news stories, blog entries, videos, events, and other activities. Cities and counties and states recognized the week in past years through official proclamations, local community events, and informational campaigns online and through social media. And yesterday we had a lot of our local and state proclamations being announced, which was really, really neat to see. Again, here is the week of schedules of what we're doing. EDCC and DCI, along with their program partners, Colorado Office of Economic Development and International Trade, Colorado Department of Local Affairs, the United States Department of Agricultural, the Colorado Division, the Economic Development Administration, Colorado Edition, and IEDC have put together a week of activities, including local social media campaigns and educational webinars for everyone to participate in. It's our intention to help educate what economic development is and how it impacts or not impacts our communities, depending on the focus of that community and the realities of economic development. We started off the week with a game show where attendees were presented with obscure facts and programs about our state partners, which then they had to identify which state partner housed the particular program. The actual outcome that came from it was highlighted in how many ways our state partners work together to bring programs to our local communities. Today, we're talking about the realities of economic development. Economic development is often plagued with the notion that development equals growth. It can also mean evolution and maturation. The opposite of development is deterioration and disintegration. If you aren't focused on the health and vitality of our community, then it becomes exposed to the threats that can harm it. In this 1-hour presentation, we explore this difficult topic that many of our communities face. Our goal is to provide clarity and constructive action that will help our communities come back from this recession quickly and vibrantly. We'd like to show a quick video from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation to kick off today's session. If it wants to participate, if it wants to participate with us. There we go.
I think we have to go back to the basics of what an economy is. It asks three questions, really. It asks us what to produce, how to produce it, and who gets the benefit. It's not only got three questions, it's got three main components. Every economy has flows of materials, flows of energy, and flows of information, particularly money. If you look at the textbook, they have an image almost of a central heating system. You've got two sectors to it, households and firms, capital and labour. Money flows between the two. Wages are paid, goods are produced, income comes back into the firm. That's fairly simple. Add to that, the government takes taxes and pays money out. Add in banks as well. They're intermediaries to make sure that savings are productively put back into the economy as investment. It's very much a pipe work, and that's how many people understand it. On top of that, there's a sense of it's going to be in an equilibrium long term. Everything is going to be the best in all possible worlds if the economy runs efficiently. And that's almost the story of the economy. Make it efficient, let it run, it'll sort itself out as long as you don't get in the way.
I'd like to introduce to you today our moderator for today, Jill Mendoza. Jill recently became the Economic Development Manager for the town of Superior and recently has been awarded her CFD certification from the International Economic Development Council. Jill is a wonderful volunteer for both the EDCC on our Professional Development Committee and with DCI. She helped us with the planning of these events for Economic Development Week, and we are very grateful for her contributions. Jill will get our discussion kicked off and we'll introduce our panelists. Let's give Jill a warm Zoom welcome. Jill, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you, Kim. I'm so excited to host this event today about cultivating a vital economy. As economic developers, that's what we all strive for in each of our individual communities. And I am proud to have a fantastic panel today of economic development experts from across the state of Colorado with deep experience in cultivating vital economies in the communities in which they work. If we can bring up the next slide, I'll show you today's panelists. We have Josh Burke, the Economic Health Director with the City of Fort Collins. Scott Shine is the Planning Manager for the City of Durango. Robert Smith is the Economic Development Director from the City of Lakewood. And finally, last but not least, Kathy Woods is the Economic Development Director for the City of Alamosa. We're going to ask each panelist to answer some questions today for you. And after they complete their remarks, we would love to have an engaging discussion with attendees. So please feel free to add comments into the chat. Our first question today is, how does your community define economic health? And how has the community helped shape this vision? So I'll turn to Josh. Josh, can you please kick us off?
Thanks, Jill. So I've been in the city of Fort Collins now for about 12 years and actually consulted for about 4 before that. And in my 16-year time span, Fort Collins has definitely been one of these places that I think has been struggling with what Kim talked about at the top of the presentation, right? Which is this concept that for many in our community, economic development is synonymous with growth. And like other communities in the Front Range, Fort Collins is trying to figure out where it wants to be and what its relationship with this concept of growth is. As a result, we've had to find a way to talk about economic development that's somewhat non-traditional in Fort Collins. As a result, you can see I am not the economic development director, I am the economic health director. And we've been intentional for the entire 16 years that I've been engaged with the city to focus on that concept of economic health, because it keeps us looking at long-term and looking more at the idea of trying to achieve equilibrium that was discussed in the video. So as a result, we tend to focus on defining economic development or economic health really as resilience. And if we look at, a dictionary, resilience is the ability to withstand, bounce back from, and even avoid adversity. And so that's kind of what we're trying to create in our economy. We think about that in a couple of key ways. First, really having good resilience means you need to have strength and diversity in your economy. You need to have some sectors or aspects of your economy where you can focus on what you do well already. And that's often looking at your existing businesses and industry sectors and helping them sort of build resilience to weather economic cycles. Diversity is about making sure that there's a breadth of employment opportunities as well as sectors, because what we do know about economies is that they engage in creative destruction. So industries and technologies are often becoming obsolete, and that changes. As a result, we really focus in Fort Collins on trying to help businesses and individuals be able to start either their business or their career here, thrive as a business or an individual, and ultimately renew. Because often what happens is where a business is focused changes on them in terms of their market segment, or the same thing happens to an individual in their career. And that's what we're focused on. So thanks for that.
Great, thank you so much, Josh. Scott, can you tell me how Durango defines economic health and what has the community done to help shape that vision?
Thanks, Jill. Good morning, colleagues from around the state, and happy Economic Development Week to you all. Before I jump into what Durango has identified as its vision, I think it's really interesting to observe, and I really appreciate sort of the intentional language about even how this session has been described. So cultivating economic vitality, and that's sort of in opposition to what we heard in that video, where there's this mindset that the economy is sort of a pipeline, sort of this technical thing. When you think about cultivating, when you think about vitality, resilience, as Josh spoke to, that's a much more organic and kind of living thing. And I think Durango's really embraced that idea that our economy is dynamic and changing, and it's this living thing that we need to be very intentional about. And when you're cultivating something, gardening or farming, or there's periods of time when you're really active and engaged and you're working really hard. And then there's periods of time where you're sort of observing a little bit more, you're doing some analysis, you're waiting to see about the results. And so I really appreciate that sort of analogy and that language that's more organic, more biological, not so much this rigid sort of engineer type of language. And like I said, Durango has definitely embraced that. And fortunately for this session, when you ask about our community vision, our council just adopted an updated strategic plan that included a vision for the community. So I'm just going to share that to you now and then talk about a few of the concepts that are in there. So it says, our vision: Durango is an authentic, diverse, multi-generational, and thriving community. Our residents value and enjoy our unique natural environment and benefit from the management of our city's resources in a fiscally responsible, environmental, and socially sustainable manner. So I know every community probably has a vision statement with probably a lot of those same words tucked in there somewhere, but this is how Durango has shaped its vision, what the community is expecting from its elected officials and from its leaders. So I just want to hone in real quick on one word, and that's authentic. And Durango is really known for and cares about sort of homegrown solutions, homegrown industries, homegrown policy approaches, homegrown investment. And we've tried to instill that even in the city organization as we lead in economic development and support the private sector. There's a lot of tension in that about things that we want to accelerate and other things that we want to sort of resist. And we'll talk more about that as we continue through the day. But that's Durango's vision, and the community is definitely engaged in helping to shape and achieve that. So, thank you.
Great, thank you, Scott. Now I'll turn it over to Robert. Robert, can you define economic health in the city of Lakewood and how the community has helped shape that vision?
I certainly am going to give it a trial on the way there. I'd just like to point out that, excuse me, that Jill Mendoza is working up there in the town of Superior automatically makes you a superior economic developer. So that's good stuff along the way there. Lakewood has a population of about 160,000 people. I know we're talking about not just growth, but economic health today, but we just have a census out. We're the 5th largest city in the state of Colorado. We are coming for you, Fort Collins. So Josh Burks, listen up. You're the 4th largest. We're the 5th. Just did a census, might be on top at the end there. But when we've got 160,000 people in there, we probably have about that many definitions of what economic health is. I really love this notion of a healthy economy because as a person, being healthy is not just the absence of injury or illness. Being healthy means that your body is ready to take on the challenges of your chosen lifestyle. So you got a little pep in your step and can move along there. And so looking at that way would be very healthy. So I'd like to pitch some new ideas or some different ideas about economic health and how it might be monitored in here. We're a pretty traditional economic development operation. We track the big 3 fundamental economic development measures. Those are jobs, capital investment, rise in the tax base. We measure a lot of things, but everything goes back into those 3 basic categories in here. But within this healthy framework, I'd like to pitch maybe some new ideas along the way. Let's start with maybe one of a definition might be when every person who needs or wants a job has access to one. Maybe that's a way to measure the health of the economy. Maybe right now, because of the challenges in the labor market, maybe it's that everybody who has a job is able to fill it. I don't know, but that's a way of looking at it. Here in Lakewood, our #1 industry is healthcare. About 70,000 jobs in the city of Lakewood, and about 13,000 of those are in healthcare. So that's our #1 industry for employment. But it's somewhat interesting to note that our #1 industry for number of firms is professional, scientific, and technical services, which means that the lawyers, the accountants, those kinds of folks, those shops are set up and they're 1 and 2. If we can just get 1 or 2 more people employed in each one of those small shops, we would be doing terrific in terms of getting the jobs in our economy well-rounded and thought out. About 90% of our businesses have less than 20 employees. About 90%, or excuse me, about 80% of them have less than 5. So good stuff there along the way. As I mentioned, I was going to mention a couple of new ways of doing this, but one of the things the pandemic taught us is maybe a measure of economic success or economic health is child care security. If the pandemic taught us anything, it's that if the kid part of your life ain't working, ain't nobody working. So we've undervalued that child care component in our society. So maybe we should start measuring it, make sure that the availability of family services where parents know the kiddos are safe, they're learning, they're happy. We need that so that folks can do the best of work that they can possibly do. They can work when they're at work and they can work when they're at, or be it with their family at home. A couple other ones I'll pitch here real quick and wrap up my time here. How about the depth of digital adoption of local businesses? How many businesses on Main Street are using digitization in order to market, to do accounting, keep track of their books? And then I'll throw one other one on there. Basically, the number of residents who are spending no more than 30% of their household income on housing themselves or keeping a roof over their head. That's kind of the federal guideline. And if we were at that, our housing equilibrium would be great with our jobs. So I'll wrap it there and talk more later. Thanks.
Thanks, Robert. We appreciate your comments, and there's definitely an evolution of priorities in our work, and as we've all seen from COVID. So thanks for sharing. And finally, Kathy, I'd love to turn it over to you and tell us a little bit about what economic health means to the city of Alamosa, and how has your community helped shape that vision?
Thanks, Jill, and good morning, everybody. It's so nice to be here. And when I'm on these panels, I'm usually towards the last of the speakers. And I love that because I can glean from what all of you have said, and much of ours is the same. But you guys have these big, amazing, highly populated areas. If you've not been to the San Luis Valley or Alamosa, please come. You'll see it's so much different. So our economic development is just a little bit different. And I see that my partner in crime, Sarah Stober from the Development Resources Group, is on, and she'll agree with me. Much of what you guys have spoken about are what we're working on right now too, but in a much smaller scale. So we have about 7 people in every mile of our vast community. I asked our city manager, what does economic health look like to you? Because I don't want to portray this for the city if you're not in agreement with it. And her first word was diversity. And I've heard that over and over again. It is true. We want to attract a diverse community. So we want to have an option for everybody. Like others, our largest employer is San Luis Valley Health. They have 850 employees, so you can tell the difference in our little small area to those larger than ours. But it's, a doctor may come to practice and the spouse may have something very eclectic and very unusual that they do. And we want to offer opportunities to everybody. We're rich in heritage. We're 40 miles from the New Mexico border. We've got the best Mexican food in Colorado. So there are just so many opportunities we've tried to take advantage of. We think a strong and sustainable existing business community is so important because we don't have the attraction. We have difficulties maybe in transportation and things like that, being in a valley and having to cross a mountain pass about every which way. We're limited to that. But when I started this position 2 years ago, it was a new position under the umbrella of the city. I'm a former elected official for the city of Alamosa, and I was in that for 12 years. And I remember as a city council member and as mayor of Alamosa, we wanted people out pounding the streets and taking care of our current businesses. That is where a lot of our revenue comes from. And so they've made sure that I have the time to do that and to I guess, really support local business. So that's important to us too. Capacity building, I heard others mention this. If you don't have childcare, you don't have anything. So we're hard at work on trying to fundraise for a childcare facility that will be open, have trained staff, have a good facility, and be open for those positions that aren't just 8 to 5 jobs. So that's a big one for us too. We just finished a housing study as well, because you can't attract workforce without housing. And we are so desperately in need of housing. So in order to kind of put a stamp on what we believe to be true as far as the need of housing, anecdotally, we had this housing study so we can start fundraising and try to develop new areas. And as a city, that's top of mind for us. Over the years, I think we think quality of life is very important to economic health because it might help attract people to our area. So the out of doors, we bought a lot of a farm next to the city a long time ago with a lot of open space, and we kept it mostly open, created trails, waterways, fishing for kids, lots of things that will kind of attract that outdoors crowd to maybe come and start up a business or at least come and live here and work. I think that's it for me.
Great, thank you, Kathy, and thank you all of our panelists for sharing. We appreciate your insights. Many of you touched upon the next question that I'll ask, and I'll start with Scott. What is your community's unique value proposition? Scott, you mentioned that in Durango, the word authentic is very important, and you shared your vision with us. Can you tell us a little bit more about what the unique value proposition is for Durango?
Of course, I'd love to. People who live here love our community and have made probably some sacrifices to be here, but really value our natural setting, along with the sort of social capital and the social fabric that we've developed. Kind of fortuitously, we were just featured in an article on the website strongtowns.org. I highly recommend, if you're not familiar with Strong Towns, that all of you check it out. And that article was entitled "The Roots of a Resilient Small City Economy in Durango." So roots, there you go, another agricultural or biological term. And it started kind of with this observation. It talked about our mining heritage as a hard rock mining sort of supply community. And it said, but every place where the economy is premised on the exploitation of a finite non-renewable resource, it eventually reaches a point where it must either adapt or die. And I think we know a lot of Colorado communities that faced that exact challenge of your mining resources, the mining industry died out. What are you going to be now? And we all know about, Vail, Aspen, Telluride, Breckenridge, those communities. And Durango has really tried to resist that drift towards just an ultra luxury, exclusive community. And we've been, I think, successful in that. We have more of a year-round economy. We do have a significant tourism population, but we're not solely dependent on that. And so we're doing some things. The article goes on to talk about how we're focusing on infill development to really maintain the character of the community and not sprawl and take up our agricultural land and preserve that resource. It also talks about an entity in our community called SCAPE, the Southwest Colorado Accelerator Program for Entrepreneurs. A great incubator program that we have in the community that, again, is more of that homegrown perspective. It's not recruiting outside entities. It's saying, what are the resources we have in our community? Where are the bright people? Where are the experienced people? Where we can form a network around these entrepreneurs and really help them grow their idea. So trying to make that transition from more of a resource dependent and even, lessening our dependence on outside tourism dollars coming in and thinking about what's the ingenuity we have, what are the assets we have that we can export and help draw in resources into the community. If I was going to summarize our unique value proposition, I would say we have urban type cultural amenities in a beautiful small town setting surrounded by world-renowned outdoor recreation. And that is exactly what Durango sort of sees itself as. We have great, restaurants, we have Fort Lewis College, which adds some youth and vibrancy. It's a well-educated population. And like I said, we take time to think about, we're not just looking for the quick fix. We need this big development or this big employer or this major infrastructure project. We think about the tension and the nuance between, yes, we want to grow, we want to develop, we know we need to change, and we're evolving into more of a regional center for the Four Corners area, and we're trying to embrace that role as a leader in the region. But we don't just want to take anything for the sake of growth. We don't want to lessen our standards and impair the quality of life or just allow anything to get slapped up for the sake of growth. And that is a very complex, nuanced conversation that we have a lot with our elected officials, with the developers that come in and talk to us about, yes, we want to support your project. We're here to work with you, but we also need this project to meet the community's priorities and reflect Durango's unique character. So that's our value proposition. Those are the things we think about every day here in Durango. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. I really appreciate your thoughtful approach to development in such a unique area. That is really important. I'll turn it over to Robert Smith now. Robert, you have more of a metropolitan community in the city of Lakewood. Can you tell us a little bit about how do you differentiate and what truly is your community's unique value proposition?
Well, you bet. I can tell you a lot of unique things about the city of Lakewood. We have the largest concentration of federal workers outside of Washington, D.C., with about 8,000 workers at the Federal Center at 6th and Kipling. We have about 110 public parks. Fully 25% of our land area is maintained by our Parks Department. We are 25 minutes closer to the mountains than most of the metro area, closer for the skiing, the snowboarding, the mountain biking, the climbing, all of those things on there. We're the only city on the planet that has a Casa Bonita. So, you know, all those things make us unique, but they're only valuable in a very few select conversation. I would argue that from an attraction standpoint, almost everything hinges on the specific deal, the economics of the real estate. And I would further argue that the way every community that's on this call today is going to be successful is by having a seasoned, professional, and knowledgeable economic development person in their midst. I mean, it's Economic Development Week. That's what we should be celebrating out here, because you need an economic developer that can package and understand the opportunities that are in your community, each of the individual opportunities that are in your community, and put that forward for the existing businesses, for retention and expansion, but also for ones that you're trying to attract. So we have some unique features here. We have a incredibly powerful purchasing market over here. We got lots of folks with money in their pockets. So if you're a business that sells something, we got buyers. They're here. In Jefferson County, where Lakewood is located, they've completely eliminated the business personal property tax in the county along the way there. So depending on how much furniture, fixtures, and equipment you might have, you know, it could save you thousands of dollars to come locate just here in Jefferson County and in Lakewood. But again, I would go back to the fact that what makes any community valuable in value of their proposition is the fact that they've got a professional economic developer that understands the local opportunities and can put those forward to the market, whatever the market might bear. That's how I'd answer that question.
Thanks, Robert. And Kathy, tell us a little bit about the city of Alamosa. What is your unique value proposition there?
I touched on it earlier, Jill. I think a lot of what we have to offer is a lot of open space, a lot of outdoor activities. Agriculture is our biggest commodity. It is kind of our big economic driver for the San Luis Valley. That's changing a little bit, but it is still right at the top of the list. Again, I mentioned, you know, we're just rich in such cultural heritage, and we have such a diverse population that in itself is really a great value to the San Luis Valley. The open space, the room to breathe, we're finding more and more, like I know a lot of you are, people are wanting that now, right? We kind of have gone through this phase where we need space. So we've got a lot of space here, and we're finding a lot of people attracted to that, especially now with a lot of remote work that can be done everywhere. And I think, gosh, we have a diverse population in that it's so interesting to come here. You have Amish and Mennonite population. There's these great horse-drawn buggies going down the side roads. It's, I think that's what we would define as our unique value proposition. Much of our population is below the poverty level. So if I'm speaking about the whole San Luis Valley, we have 2 counties that are are in the bottom area of poverty level of the whole state. So they rise to the top in poverty level for the whole state. And one of them is one of the highest poverty levels in the nation. So we have our challenges there too. But what I'll leave you with is that during the rises and falls of the economy and things that are going on in the world, we are so stable. Our community is just strong and tough, and the highs, never get that high, but they seem really good to us. And the lows never feel that bad. We stay pretty stable. Our community stays fairly stable and really strong. So we think that's a great value proposition for the San Luis Valley and for Alamosa as well.
Thank you, Kathy. And I think so many of us realized how important resiliency is during this last year. And it sounds like the city of Alamosa has maintained that not just last year, but throughout. And I also really appreciate your comments on diversity and inclusion as part of what makes your community unique. That's wonderful. And finally, I'll turn it over to Josh. Josh, can you tell us about what the city of Fort Collins value proposition is and how that is executed through your Office of Economic Health?
Yes, thank you, Jill. I guess first I'll say, I think we share of a part of the value proposition that's probably something that every community within the state can claim ownership to, right? Which is, we are a place that people want to be, because of the beautiful outdoors, because of, the cost of living compared to other places like the coasts, which is still higher, even though our cost of living is going up. And because I think we present a combination of hard work and fun living, right? That I think works for kind of today's labor force. So obviously we get to share in that, and that's something that the whole state, I think, gets to share in. I think what is unique to Fort Collins is we have deep agricultural roots, yet we're a high tech employment center and an innovation hub. And so that creates this kind of really interesting combination of, long-standing sort of fiscal conservatism as a community and not sort of overreaching, while at the same time, being focused on a number of progressive issues and having, that as kind of a foundation. An example of kind of how that plays out in our community is we have municipally owned utilities, which are extremely highly reliable, 99.99, keep going with nines until you get tired of it, kind of percent uptime, and very inexpensive. That has been huge for businesses like Broadcom that manufacture, literally pepper flake sized chips for cell phones in our community. Add to that we have Colorado State University, several federal labs that are engaged in research and development. We have the second largest lab for the CDC outside of Atlanta that works on vector-borne diseases. And what we've done is we've parlayed that kind of agricultural heritage into a much more modern and growing city. Number 4, going strong, Robert. Good luck catching us. So I think all of that kind of fits into this unique value proposition for Fort Collins. On top of that, we've got great schools. We're a good family community. And we have a place where I think everybody is still willing to sort of chip in. And I think this is something that's not unique to Fort Collins, but is probably just part of the Colorado mentality. And that is, Metro Denver Economic Development Corporation is doing some new marketing. And one of the things they're kind of focusing on is this idea that we don't really see competitors as competitors in this state, right? But more as, working together and collaborating. And so that makes new business formation still something that, I think Colorado isn't necessarily seeing the same trend that's happening across the nation, which is less new business formation. And I think there's a lot of opportunity there. And I'll end by saying, my community is really starting to kind of lean into diversity and inclusion as an important space to be thinking about. And I heard that in my colleagues on the panel today. And the Latinx community in particular has an entrepreneurism rate that vastly exceeds, right, like the white population today. And so there are real opportunities, I think, for us as economic health professionals to support these new and growing, communities across the state, and have them create the economic outcomes that, Robert was talking about, jobs and wealth creation and stability. So I think that's where I'll leave it in terms of what makes Fort Collins unique. And a lot of it is because we're in the state of Colorado. If we weren't here, many of those things probably would not be part of what makes Fort Collins. Thanks.
Thanks, Josh. Yes, I think the state of Colorado is a great place for economic developers to work to try to improve our communities. And we have such great partners throughout the state that we've highlighted this week and that we get to collaborate with. I'd like to turn it over to Kim Woodworth with Economic Development Council of Colorado now. She's going to make a few comments and share a video.
Yes, so Josh, you actually you hit one of the questions that came through the chat section on the head, but I wanted to kind of throw it back out to some of the panelists. So talking about cultural diversity, and we understand that this is, something that has been has been highlighted by the pandemic. So what part of that that diversity of your culture are you working on as part of your economic vitality programs? So let me throw that out to, let's start with Scott.
Well, I think, just to be open and honest about it, Durango is not a very diverse community at its heart. And so we've tried to think about what do we have in our community and who are the underserved populations. And we have a close relationship with our surrounding tribes. And we've thought about ways to partner with them more and engage at more of a regional effort in supporting their initiatives. There is a big emphasis on council now about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and recognizing that is crucial to our community health. But I would say it's sort of in the seed stage at this point, and we're excited to understand and tackle it more.
Thank you. And Kathy, you did mention it within your community, and we talked a little bit about this the other day, you and I, about some of the challenges in your community as actually being an opportunity for you.
Yeah, I think that's right, Kim. While we are challenged, I think we're stronger for it, and we have to maybe work a little harder to get to some things. But we really encourage minorities, and really in the San Luis Valley, I think we're almost 50% Hispanic. So we're on a pretty level playing field, but we really want to encourage minorities to start businesses, manage businesses, be in those positions that they maybe haven't been in the past, and they're very qualified, and maybe more qualified than many that have been in the past are. So we want to encourage and support them. Yeah, we've got a lot of programs, to try to help people along. We have so many nonprofits. I don't know about the other communities that are here, but we are like a mega area for nonprofits, and they're all very well supported. Our community really supports them in many ways, and we'll continue to do that because the outcomes of that have been really significant.
Thank you, Kathy. I did notice the time, so I've got to get moving on. But one question that came through, this was for Scott. You talk a lot about tension and embracing tension as part of your growth. Most of us avoid that tension as a rule, but it sounds like you embrace it. So can you tell us a little bit more about that while I get the next video prompted? Yeah,
it's a good question, and I'm glad you picked up on that, because we definitely feel it, and some of the other panelists have spoken about sort of the housing needs in their communities and the stretch. And we know that we need to draw in new housing creation. And we need to be more flexible in our development process and in our standards. But again, we don't want to just slap up some Soviet bunkers and say we're winning the housing war. So that's a real simplified way to think about that tension of, yes, come in. We're willing to partner with you. We just formed an urban renewal authority that's received broad community support, and so we have tangible financial incentives that we can provide for the right partners, but we're emphasizing what the community wants and again, meshing well with the community character. So, and I think that's a good question, Kim, if I can set you up. Are we going to watch that donut economy video? Because that tension really gets illustrated well in that video.
Yeah. Scott, that is the plan, to watch that. And I'll just tie what you were saying. As we were designing this session, it was really part of the idea was getting at some of the pushback that we're feeling from our communities, and some of the things in all different regions of our state, I think, come from this idea of externalities. And when you go back to the roots of economics with Adam Smith way back when, talking about externalities and that the market will not regulate when those externalities exist. So as we look at the different pressures that we're facing, it gets back into the very roots of economics. And so the donut economic theory really brings the past of economic development right to our present and what we're facing in much of Colorado. I'm also glad that Scott brought up urban renewal, and many of the communities that we have on our panel are groups that Downtown Colorado Inc. works with around urban renewal. And the ones who don't have it are also looking at similar ways to really think about how do you redevelop, reuse, and essentially recycle the land and the buildings that you have. So it really gets at our roots in Colorado as really loving our environment, and that being a primary value proposition that we all have, and bringing that into our economic playbook as we look at how we move forward. So we're excited to share this video. And as we go into our discussion, we may go a little bit over time, but this is a really important idea. So I hope you guys can stay and watch. It's only 2 minutes.
In the 20th century, economics lost its purpose and started chasing the false goal of GDP growth. In recent decades, that has pushed many societies into deepening inequality, and it's pushing us all towards ecological collapse. This century calls for a new goal, meeting the needs of all within the means of the planet. In other words, it's time to get into the donut, the sweet spot for humanity.
Of course. Of course.
That's no easy task. Today, billions of people still fall short of their daily needs, from food, housing and energy to healthcare and education. And yet collectively, we've already overshot our pressure on some of Earth's most critical life support systems, driving climate change and the breakdown of biodiversity. What we do to this Earth in the next 50 years will shape the next 10,000. So let's replace that last century goal of endless growth with the goal of thriving in balance. And if we're to have half a chance of getting there, what economic mindset would be fit for the task?
Great. Well, thank you so much for that video. And our final question to wrap up with each of the panelists is, how are you evolving your work so that we can create better economic health for the state of Colorado? you can just leave us with a couple of comments on how your work is evolving. We have a poll here, and we'll start with Kathy. Kathy, can you share with us maybe a few of the unique things that you're doing to evolve your work in Alamosa?
Oh, sure, Jill. I would be the first one on this one. I was hoping to hear others because I'm sort of stumped on this. But I'm going to give it a try. I think Colorado is among the top 5 rated states in the nation. And although Colorado is ranked at lowest poverty rate, and I already talked about this, that's not the case in our area. So I just feel like our little area can just contribute to the whole state with our open space, move, area to move and breathe and be here. We have the diversity. We have, I think of this as like, how can we save our planet? And I can't think of anything that's going to come near that. But although we're ranked among the most impoverished states, we think that we have a lot to offer. It's not geographically suited for a lot of larger businesses or attracting a ton of primary development, but we have our place in the state, and we feel like we do have something to offer for the health of the general state. If it's not anything else, it can be our diversity, I guess.
Great, thank you. And what about you, Robert? How is Lakewood evolving their economic health activities to really create a greater health for the whole state?
Well, it's a very complicated thing. A lot of ins, a lot of outs, a lot of what have yous, a lot of strands to keep in your head at any given time along the way. But I think the first step is to really embrace the fact that we're all part of a larger economic system. There's state, county, city, commercial corridor. And I know some of the mountain communities and some of the plains communities are in regional sections where they can get together. But in the chat, there were a couple of things in there. I think Scott brought up the term cooperation. I mentioned something about collaboration, but essentially we have somewhat of a competitive sort of a moment, but we also have a collaborative moment. We're stronger together than we ever will be separately. Folks coming into the community from external are looking at it. They know more about Colorado. They know more about Denver than they do perhaps about Lakewood or the mountain communities. So we need to really embrace that along the way. So if somebody asks me, Denver's a mile high city, is Lakewood a mile high city as well? I say, well, actually, technically, we're a little bit higher. We're kind of looking down at the rest of a lot of stuff because we're close to the mountains. But no competition here, cooperation all the way along the way. Something that is worth noting here in the city of Lakewood, every morning about 65,000 folks leave the city of Lakewood to work in some other city, in Arvada, in Wheat Ridge, in Golden, in Denver, all kinds of things. But on the flip side of that, about 83,000 folks come from some other city to work in the city of Lakewood. About 16,000 are lucky enough to live and work in Lakewood, but we're part of a system here, at least in the Metroplex. We're very much part of that system, and we really need to be able to embrace that and be able to say that we're working with our folks. So I'm going to be cheering on every time that Josh, gets a little bit better. I'm going to cheer on every time that our folks down in Alamosa get a big win. I'm going to cheer on Durango, as they figure out ways to leverage the college down there and make things happen, because when we all win, we all win. And just a quick comment on that donut video. In Belmar in Lakewood, we just opened up the donut club. And then I'm told from those folks that those donuts are actually made in Fort Collins, Colorado, and they come down to Lakewood every morning, fresh and hot, right off the line there. So that's a way that we're working cooperatively, with that donut economy. Thanks, Kat. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Robert. Yes, our economy is definitely interconnected, not only within the region, but throughout the state. Josh, you had some great comments in the chat here. Tell us how you think that the city of Fort Collins is evolving your economy for greater health for the state as a whole.
Yeah, I think probably the biggest lesson for our community from COVID is that fundamentally a strong economy has to be focused on both primary employers and Main Street. Um, what we've traditionally done as economic developers is focused on primary employers because they bring wealth from outside our community into our community. What COVID has taught us is that if you don't have the catcher's mitt in the Main Street businesses, Jeff Bezos is the one who gets the benefit of that wealth that you've brought to your community, right? And I'm using that to be facetious, but we get the concept. It's difficult to retain and get the benefit of primary employers if we don't also have a thriving sort of local Main Street economy. And so it has to be both and. So we in Fort Collins are trying to figure that out. I think the other thing we're trying to do is conquer parochialism. Robert, thanks for bringing up your commuting data. The reality is, and I've said this for all 16 years I've been in the city, the economy doesn't care about Fort Collins jurisdictional boundaries, right? The economy is the economy. It's a living, breathing thing. And so it expands well beyond my, sort of political area of focus. And since about 2017, Larimer and Weld County and all the municipalities within have been really focusing on regionalism more. And I think that we need to keep building on that as a state. And then I'll just end by saying, a little bit more about what I put in the chat on this concept of strengths. You probably all get to sit in on a lot of entrepreneurial pitches, and instantly that if that entrepreneur comes in and says, I've got this great new thing, it's a new, food product, I just need 1% of the food industry and I'll be able to make it pencil, right? What immediately from that entrepreneur is that they don't understand their market segment. I worry sometimes that we as a state, when we talk about our industry sectors that we have strength in, we're coming across like that particular entrepreneur, right? Like we just, we have all this aerospace strength. Okay, great. But what is our actual strength and target space within that particular segment? And then I said one last thing, but this is absolutely the last thing. I really think we should be exploring the concept of industry clusters as it relates less to businesses and more to individuals. What are our talent clusters? Where do we have really strong depth, right, in terms of capabilities, knowledge, skills, and abilities in this state? And that, I think, will help us really be able to position ourselves well for the future. I have a lot more I could say, but I'll stop there because I know we're over time.
I know we have had such a rich conversation today, and it is wonderful to hear all these great provoking comments. I'll wrap up with Scott now, who is in a region that's known for innovation. How is Durango evolving your economy to contribute to greater health for the whole state?
Thank you. Yeah, I'll be very short because I know we're over time. I also think it's worth pointing out the Zoom prowess of this group. Nobody started talking while on mute today. That's amazing. That's the first Zoom meeting I've ever been in. So good work, everybody. The thing, if I would bring anything to the top, and it's something I just get more and more set on the more experience I get, is we need to be more human-centered and human-scaled. And so in development and in planning, we talk about human scaled places as opposed to, automobile scaled. I think in our sort of processes and in our systems, we need to really push back against overly bureaucratic, overly distanced or separated, overly, defaced or impersonal approaches. The reason we go there is because we're scared of more of this relational approach, of this customized deal making or application of standards in the government. And I just think we need to get past that, and we need to think more about the humans that we're working with. I think that's what's all behind the equity and inclusion movement, is we've just set up these systems that do not factor that in, the diverse humanity that we are, and that we all have unique contributions to bring. And so as somebody in local government in a growing community that's a growing number of employees, I'm really pushing back against any, again, drift towards bureaucracy, drift towards rigidness, and trying to be very approachable, trying to think about things in an incremental and a customized way. So that's the main thing I would highlight. Have a bunch of other things. I put some books in the chat that I've really enjoyed over the past year or so. And thank you to DCI and EDCC for bringing us together.
Thank you. Thank you so much to all of our panelists who have shared such great thoughts with us today. And thank you to DCI and to EDCC for convening us and to really focus our efforts on illuminating what economic developers are doing throughout the state. They are able to tap into the great expertise that we have in all of the panelists that we had here today, and are really helping give us the tools to help share what's going on in each of our communities. So I encourage you to look at the toolkit, make sure you're engaging on social media and showcasing all the great work that's being done in each and every one of your communities. We will be sending out a 5-minute survey after this, and we definitely appreciate your insight and feedback so that we can make these events even better going forward. And finally, don't forget to register for Thursday's event. We love seeing everyone on, and I'm sorry that we just don't have more time to talk because this has been such a great discussion. Thank you to our panelists, to DCI, to EDCC, and to all of you for joining us today. Thank you.